One way to set your work apart is with a handmade chain. In this workshop, I'll show you how to create this beautiful handmade vintage style chain using wire and jump rings. First, cut 14 1-inch long pieces of 16 gauge wire. I'm using dead soft fine silver wire. When I cut the wire, there's a little bit of a ragged end. I need to clean that up and round it up with a cut burr. I could do this by hand using a wire rounding tool or a cut burr in a pen vise. Here I'm using a cut burr in my flex shaft. I use a low speed and rotate the wire end in the cut burr until it rounds. Once all the ends have been rounded, I need to straighten each piece of wire. I'm using 2 bench blocks for this. I have a 4-inch bench block and a 2-inch, and I put the wire between them and just roll it back and forth, applying just a little bit of pressure. This straightens the wire and work hardens it slightly. So when I have a piece like this that's not quite straight enough, I can just roll it under the blocks, a little bit of pressure, check it, make sure that it rolls nice and straight. This one's not done. And that's good. Now we're going to slightly flatten each piece. I'm using my small bench block as a hammer, and I'm just going to tap that lightly. I don't want it too flat, just a little bit in the center so it doesn't roll. I keep the block nice and level. Now I'll use a goldsmithing hammer to create the paddle ends on each of the pieces of wire. I'll start by first hammering straight down on the very end to create the rounded end, and then I move the hammer in the direction that I want the shape to go so that I can create a nice little paddle shape on each end. Once that's done on all the pieces, I'm going to drill holes and texture the surface. To texture, I'm using this riveting hammer, which has a very sharp end on it and makes really nice textures. I'll hold the 2 ends down with my fingers and then just create a little pattern with my hammering. I'll just go down the bar and back up a couple of times, and I'll repeat this pattern on each piece. Once all the pieces are textured, I need to mark a spot on each end where I want to drill a hole. I'm using a fine point Sharpie marker so that I can get a very, very small dot, and then I make a divot with the punch in the middle of each of the little dots. And now my drill bit will sit in that little hole and I can drill precisely where I want. And here I'm using a 1mm drill, and I'm drilling into a scrap block of oak. Whenever I drill through metal, there's always a little burr on one side or both sides. I use my fingers to find the burrs and then hold my bench knife at a very sharp angle and scrape those burrs off. Once I've deburred all these pieces, then I'll polish them and assemble the links with jump rings. Here I'm using 2.5mm round jump rings, but you could use just about any size or shape of jump ring, and you could vary the length of the bars or give it a different texture. There are so many options with this chain.